You're standing at the window right now, staring at that yellow patch spreading across your lawn, wondering how much the water bill is going to hurt this month. Stop. Put the hose down. There's a $5 liquid sitting in most kitchens right now that keeps grass green through the worst August drought. And the Amish families in Lancaster County have been mixing it in galvanized buckets since before your grandfather was born. I spent 2 summers watching them do it, and I want to tell you about a 1,943 wartime bulletin from Penn State Extension that quietly confirmed everything they've been doing. This works on your existing lawn, not a new one, yours, the one dying right now. The first time I saw it, I was standing on a gravel drive outside a farmhouse just south of Intercourse, Pennsylvania. It was the middle of July, 94 degrees, no rain for 3 weeks. Every English lawn I'd driven past that morning looked like burnt toast. Then I pulled into this Amish property, and the grass around the house was so green it looked painted. I asked the man who lived there if he had a well pump running. He laughed. He said he hadn't watered that lawn in 11 days. 11 days in a heat wave, with 2 boys and a dog running across it every afternoon. And the grass looked better than my neighbor's, who was paying $80 a month for an in-ground sprinkler system. I want you to understand something before we go any further. What I'm about to describe is not fertilizer. It's not a chemical. It's not something you have to order from a catalog or drive to a hardware store to buy. It's a liquid mixture that costs about $5 for enough to treat a quarter-acre lawn, and it does 3 things at once that no store-bought product does together. It feeds the soil, it holds moisture at the root level, and it wakes up the microbes that make grass drought-resistant in the first place. And here's the part that made me sit down when I finally understood it. The reason you've never heard of this is not because it's a secret, it's because someone made a lot of money making sure you kept watering. Let me back up. In 1943, with the country rationing gasoline and fertilizer for the war effort, Penn State Extension released a bulletin. I believe it was numbered around 447. Though the exact catalog number varies depending on which archive you pull it from, advising Pennsylvania farmers and homeowners how to keep pastures and lawns alive without commercial inputs. The bulletin was written by a soil scientist working with local farm families, many of them plain communities in Lancaster and Chester counties. And the core recommendation was a simple foliar spray made from 3 household ingredients: molasses, ammonia, and plain tap water, left to sit uncovered for 24 hours so the chlorine could evaporate. That's it. That's the mixture. 1 cup of unsulfured blackstrap molasses, 1 cup of plain household ammonia, the clear kind, no additives, no lemon scent, no soap, and 2 gallons of dechlorinated water. You mix it in a pump sprayer and you spray it across your lawn in the early evening once every 3 weeks during the growing season. The molasses feeds the soil, microbes, carbon, and sugar. The ammonia delivers nitrogen straight to the grass blades and the root zone, and the microbes, once they wake up, hold moisture in the soil like a sponge. Auburn University did soil microbe studies in the late 1990s that confirmed sugar applications increase microbial biomass by more than 300% in 8 weeks. 300%. That's not a rounding error. That's a completely different lawn. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. The lawn care industry in the United States is worth about $150 billion a year. Fertilizer companies, chemical companies, sprinkler manufacturers, sod farms, water utilities, and every single one of them makes more money when you believe your lawn needs constant, expensive intervention. In 1962, right around the time Scott started its national television campaigns, the extension bulletins on molasses and ammonia sprays stopped being reprinted. They didn't get banned. They just quietly disappeared from the county offices, replaced by glossy pamphlets for granular fertilizer and pre-emergent herbicides. Someone benefited from you forgetting. Someone still does. Now, if you already own a house and a lawn, and you're thinking this only applies to people with big rural properties, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You can do this on a suburban quarter acre. You can do it on a corner lot in a subdivision. You do not need a tractor, a well, or a permit. You need a 2-gallon pump sprayer from any hardware store, about $8. You need 1 bottle of blackstrap molasses from the grocery baking aisle, about $4. And you need 1 bottle of clear household ammonia, about $2. That's $14 total for the equipment, and the sprayer lasts years. The recurring cost per application is closer to $3. Fill your sprayer with 2 gallons of water and let it sit on the porch, cap off, for a full day. This matters. Municipal tap water carries chlorine and sometimes chloramine, and both of those kill the exact soil microbes you're trying to feed. 24 hours uncovered, and most of the chlorine gas is off. If you have well water, you can skip this step. Then add 1 cup of molasses, warm it in a jar of hot water first so it pours easy, and 1 cup of ammonia. Cap the sprayer, shake it gently. Walk your lawn in the evening, after the sun is off the grass but before dark, and spray a light, even coat. You are not soaking the ground. You are misting the blades and the surface soil. Do this the first evening. Then wait 3 weeks. Do it again. By the 3rd application, somewhere around week 7 or 8, you will see something happen that most homeowners never see in their lives. The grass gets darker green than it's ever been, the color spreads evenly, not in patchy fertilizer stripes, and after a hot, dry stretch of 5 or 6 days with no rain, your lawn will still be green while every neighbor's has gone crispy at the edges. That's the microbes doing their job. They're holding water at the root level, and they're releasing nitrogen slowly, the way nature designed it before someone decided you needed a bag with a logo on it. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because this is where most videos would try to sell you something, and I'm not going to insult you like that. What you just heard is one technique. The Amish families I sat with in Holmes County and Lancaster County have dozens of these quiet formulas for keeping a root cellar cold in August without electricity, for treating pantry weevils with a single dried leaf, for warming a bedroom in January using nothing but a south-facing window and a stone. I ended up putting the whole buried archive together into a 3-volume collection called The Complete Field Vault, and there's a limited time offer running on it right now that I set up for the folks who watch these videos. It's linked in the description below, and you can scan the QR code on your screen. That's the rest of what got taken from you. Now let's get back to your lawn, because there's still a piece of this puzzle I haven't given you yet. Because here's the problem. Even with the molasses spray working perfectly, most American lawns are fighting an uphill battle that has nothing to do with water or fertilizer. It has to do with what's underneath the grass. And this is where the story gets darker, and where the real Amish knowledge starts to separate from anything you'll ever hear from a lawn care company. Your soil is compacted. Almost every suburban lawn built after 1970 sits on top of dirt that was scraped, graded, and driven over by heavy equipment during construction. The topsoil got hauled away and sold. What's left is a dense clay and fill layer that water runs off of instead of soaking into. You can pour 100 gallons on it, and half of it ends up in the storm drain. The Amish don't have this problem, and here's why. Their properties have been worked by hand or by horse for generations. No bulldozers, no skid steers. No 100,000-pound delivery trucks parked on the front yard while the house was framed. Their soil breathes, yours doesn't. And the standard American solution, you rent a core aerator once a year, pull a bunch of little plugs of dirt, and hope for the best, is a Band-Aid on a broken leg. Cornell University did a study in 2004 on soil compaction in residential lawns. They found that mechanical core aeration only affected the top 2 inches of soil. Below that, the compaction was untouched. So you're feeding the top 2 inches, and the roots can't go any deeper. Here's what the Amish do instead, and this is the piece almost nobody knows about. They spike the ground, not with a machine. With a simple hand tool, a broad fork, or in older properties, just a garden fork pushed in and rocked back at intervals across the lawn. Every 2 feet, in a grid pattern, once in early spring and once in early fall. It takes about an hour for a 1/4 acre. It creates channels down 8 to 10 inches into the soil. And when you follow the spiking with your molasses spray, the mixture runs down into those channels and feeds the microbes at the depth where the roots actually live. That's the combination. Not either one alone, both together. And this is where I need to give you the piece I promised you at the beginning. The finale technique. The one I found buried in an old document that changed how I think about this entire subject. It was in the Farm Journal archives, a piece written in 1911 by a man named J. Elmer Bear, who was documenting agricultural practices among Old Order, Mennonite, and Amish communities in southeastern Pennsylvania. Bear was not an insider. He was a progressive-era journalist trying to understand why Plain community farms consistently outproduced their English neighbors during drought years. And he found one practice that no modern lawn or garden book has ever reprinted, as far as I can tell. They used skimmed milk. Not fresh milk, not whole milk. The skimmed leftover after the cream had been separated for butter, a liquid most farms in 1911 considered waste and fed to hogs. The Amish would dilute it, 1 part milk to 4 parts water, and apply it to lawns and pastures once a year in late spring, right before the first serious heat. Bear documented that treated pastures held green color 11 to 14 days longer during the 1911 drought than untreated ones on adjacent farms. 11 to 14 days. He couldn't explain why. He just recorded it. We can explain it now. Milk contains natural sugars, proteins, calcium, and a beneficial bacterial load that acts as a soil probiotic. It coats the grass blades in a thin film that reduces evaporation, and it feeds a specific class of soil fungi called mycorrhizae that form partnerships with grass roots and pull moisture from depths the roots themselves cannot reach. The University of Arizona ran trials in 2012 on milk applications to turfgrass in Tucson, one of the driest test environments in the country, and they measured a significant reduction in irrigation needs on treated plots. The knowledge existed. A man in 1911 wrote it down. It was ignored for over 100 years because there's no company that makes money selling you the skim milk that's already in your refrigerator. Here's how you use it, and it's absurdly simple. Once a year, in mid to late May, take 1 gallon of skim milk, the cheap store brand kind, about $3, and mix it into 4 gallons of water in a bucket or a larger sprayer. Apply it in the early morning when there's still dew on the grass so the sun doesn't sour it on the blades. Spray or pour a light coat across the entire lawn. That's the full application. Once a year. Combined with your molasses and ammonia spray every 3 weeks and your spring and fall spiking, you have a complete lawn system that costs less than $20 a year in materials and requires no municipal water beyond normal rainfall. I did this on my own lawn for the first full summer 3 years ago. My water bill in July, the month I'd historically averaged around $90 because of constant sprinkler use, dropped to $28. The lawn was the greenest it had ever been in the 15 years I'd owned the house. My neighbor across the street, who spends about $400 a year on a commercial lawn service, finally walked over one August afternoon and asked me what I was doing. I told him. He didn't believe me. He kept paying the service. Some people can't accept that the answer was always this simple, because accepting it means facing how much they've spent on nothing. And that's really what this whole thing is about. It's not just about your lawn, it's about the pattern. Somewhere along the way, ordinary knowledge that used to pass from one generation to the next got interrupted. Bulletins stopped being reprinted. Grandparents stopped teaching grandchildren. The county extension offices got quieter, and in the space where that knowledge used to live, companies moved in and sold us the same answers our great-grandparents got for free. Water bills, fertilizer bags, sprinkler installations, lawn services, $150 billion a year, built on the foundation of a forgetting that didn't happen by accident. The Amish didn't forget because they don't participate in the systems that require forgetting. They kept the bulletins. They kept the practices. They kept the milk buckets and the molasses jars and the hand forks in the shed, and they passed all of it down without asking anyone's permission. That's the real secret. Not any single technique. The willingness to keep doing something simple when a whole industry is telling you it can't possibly work. So this weekend, I want you to try one thing, just one. Buy the molasses, buy the ammonia, fill a sprayer, let the water sit overnight. Do one application in the evening. And in 3 weeks, do another. And then in May of next year, add the milk. That's it. That's the whole system. $14 in equipment, less than $20 a year in supplies, and a lawn that outlasts anything your neighbors are paying hundreds of dollars for. You didn't lose this knowledge because you weren't paying attention. You lost it because somebody made sure it slipped out of the record. And tonight, you got a piece of it back. If you're the kind of person who suspects that the real answers were quietly buried while the expensive ones got put on billboards, then you already know what to do with this video. here's my question for you, and I want you to actually answer it in the comments below. Don't just watch and leave. What did your grandfather or your grandmother do for their lawn or garden that nobody talks about anymore? One specific memory. One thing they mixed, one thing they poured, one thing they knew that you've never seen in a store. Write it below. I read every comment on these videos, and the ones you leave become the research for the next one. And if you want to keep walking down this road with me, subscribe. This isn't a channel. It's a slow, quiet recovery of the things that used to be common knowledge before somebody decided we should pay for them instead. Next time, I'm going to show you the reason Amish barns stay 40 degrees cooler than the outside air in August without a single fan, a single vent motor, or a single kilowatt of electricity, and it involves something they build into the north wall that no modern contractor has laid eyes on in 60 years. I'll see you there. But before you close this video and go pour yourself a glass of water and think about what I just told you, I want to sit with you a little longer, because there are pieces of this story I haven't given you yet, and they matter. They matter because the recipe alone isn't the whole thing. The recipe is the doorway. What's behind the doorway is a whole way of thinking about land that we lost somewhere between the end of the Second World War and the arrival of the first riding mower with a cup holder. Let me take you back to the summer of 1934. That was the worst year of the Dust Bowl. In May of that year, a storm carried an estimated 350 million tons of topsoil off the plains of Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, and Colorado, and dropped a portion of it on the streets of New York City and the deck of ships 200 miles out into the Atlantic. Franklin Roosevelt looked out the window of the White House on May 11th and saw the dust from Nebraska sitting on his windowsill. Now, why am I telling you about the Dust Bowl in a video about lawns? Because the response to that catastrophe is exactly where the knowledge I've been describing to you got its second wind. The Soil Conservation Service was formed in 1935, and one of the first things Hugh Hammond Bennett, the man they called the father of soil conservation, did was to send agents out to every county in the country to collect what he called grandmother formulas. He knew, because he was a farmer's son from Anson County, North Carolina, that the people who had kept land alive through drought after drought before the tractor and before the chemical company knew things that no university had bothered to write down. Between 1935 and 1941, Bennett's agents collected somewhere in the neighborhood of 62,000 of these formulas: molasses solutions, ash slurries, fish emulsions, buttermilk sprays, coffee ground applications, egg water, and yes, the ammonia and sugar combination I described to you tonight, which shows up in the records under at least 14 different names depending on the county and the accent of the farmer who was telling it. Those records were archived, they were typed up on onion skin paper, 3 carbon copies each, and filed at the county extension offices across the country. And then, starting around 1954, they began to disappear. Not all at once, not in a fire, not in a dramatic single event you could point to. They disappeared the way old things always disappear in America, quietly, into dumpsters, during renovations, when a new director came in and needed the shelf space, when the county consolidated with the one next door, when a young man with a marketing degree from Ohio State University walked in and said, "Nobody uses this anymore, Marge. We can toss it." A woman named Eleanor Corvin, who worked as an extension secretary in Boone County, Missouri from 1948 to 1979, told an oral history interviewer in 1993 that she personally watched 4 filing cabinets of what she called the old papers get carried out to a rented truck in the spring of 1968 and driven to the municipal landfill. She said she asked where they were going, and the man told her they were going to be replaced with modern materials. What replaced them, she said, were pamphlets. Glossy pamphlets from the fertilizer companies. Free of charge, delivered by the truckload. You need to understand what happened in that shift, because it wasn't just a change of paper, it was a change of authority. Before 1954, the authority on how to take care of your yard was your grandmother, your neighbor, the man who ran the feed store, and the county agent who had spent 30 years walking the same fields you walked. After 1954, the authority became a chemist in a lab in Wilmington, Delaware, or Midland, Michigan, or St. Louis, Missouri. And that chemist had a very particular incentive, which was to sell you a bag of something that cost 42 cents to manufacture and retailed for $8.95. That's not a conspiracy. That's just capitalism doing what capitalism does when nobody's watching the hen house. But the effect on your lawn, and on the lawns of every house on your street, was that within one single generation, from 1955 to 1980, the average American homeowner went from spending less than $3 a year on lawn care to spending, in inflation-adjusted terms, roughly $240 a year, and the lawns didn't get better. In many cases, they got worse. Because what the ammonia and the molasses and the beer and the Epsom salt were doing for your grandfather's grass wasn't just feeding it, it was feeding the entire microscopic ecosystem underneath it. The bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, the nematodes that eat the bad nematodes, the earthworms, the springtails. There are, on a healthy square foot of lawn, more living organisms than there are human beings on the planet Earth. Let that sit with you for a second. 1 square foot, more life than 7 billion people. And every time you dump a bag of 1515 synthetic salt fertilizer on that square foot, you kill somewhere between 40 and 70% of them within 72 hours. That's not an exaggeration. That's from a 2007 study out of Oregon State University by a soil biologist named Elaine Ingham, and it's been replicated at least 6 times since. So, when I tell you that a gallon of household ammonia, a can of flat beer, half a cup of molasses, a cup of dish soap, and a cup of mouthwash mixed into a hose end sprayer will keep your lawn green through a July with no rain, I am not telling you a folk tale. I am telling you the applied result of 120 years of trial and error by people who could not afford to be wrong, because if their yard failed, their kitchen garden failed, and if their kitchen garden failed, they didn't eat in February, the stakes were higher then, the knowledge was tested harder, and the reason it works is chemically boring and biologically beautiful. The ammonia provides nitrogen in a form that soil microbes convert slowly, so you don't get the flash and burn cycle of synthetic urea. The molasses feeds those microbes directly, they eat the simple sugars, they multiply, and their bodies, when they die, become the slow-release fertilizer for the roots. The beer contributes yeast, which is a fungal amendment, and the fermentation acids gently lower the pH just enough to unlock phosphorus that's been locked up in your soil for years. The dish soap breaks the surface tension of the water, so the mixture actually penetrates the thatch layer instead of beating up and running off. And the mouthwash, this is the one people laugh at until they read the label. The mouthwash contains eucalyptol, thymol, and menthol, which are natural insect repellents and mild fungicides. Listerine, specifically, was originally formulated in 1879 by Joseph Lawrence as a surgical antiseptic. It killed things, it still kills things. It kills the fungal spores that cause brown patch and dollar spot, and it discourages the chinch bugs and the sod webworms that would otherwise be feasting on your root crowns in the heat. Now, I want to give you some names, because history without names is just weather. There was a man named Jerry Baker, born in 1931, who spent most of the 1970s and 1980s on public television preaching almost exactly what I've told you tonight. He called himself America's master gardener, and he called these mixtures tonics. He was mocked. He was called a huckster. He was accused of selling nonsense. And then, roughly 15 years after he died, agricultural researchers at Texas A&M, at Michigan State, and at the University of Guelph in Ontario began publishing peer-reviewed studies that showed, one after another, that the components of Baker's tonics did exactly what he said they did. Not as fast as chemical fertilizer, but more sustainably, more cheaply, and with dramatically less runoff into the watershed. Jerry Baker wasn't a fraud, he was early. And being early in America is often indistinguishable from being wrong, right up until the moment history clears its throat and admits you were right all along. There was also a woman I want you to know about named Ruth Stout. Ruth was born in 1884 in Topeka, Kansas, and she gardened until she was 96 years old. She wrote a book in 1955 called How to Have a Green Thumb Without an Aching Back. And in that book, she described a system for growing food and keeping ground cover that required no tilling, no weeding, no watering after the first year, and almost no fertilizer beyond what she made in her own kitchen. She used spoiled milk, she used the water she boiled potatoes in, she used the dregs from the coffee pot, she used the ash from her wood stove. She died in 1980, and her methods were mostly forgotten within a decade, replaced by rototillers and Roundup. But if you go on any serious permaculture forum today, you will find gardeners in their 20s and 30s rediscovering Ruth Stout as if she were a lost prophet. She wasn't lost, she was buried. There's a difference, and here's what I want you to sit with. The people I'm naming, Bennett, Corvin, Baker, Stout, they were not radicals, they were not fringe. In their own time, they were mainstream. Hugh Hammond Bennett briefed the President of the United States. Jerry Baker was on network television. Ruth Stout's book was reviewed in the New York Times. What happened to their knowledge is not that it was rejected on the merits, it's that it was outspent. The advertising budgets of Scott's, of Ortho, of Chemlon, which was founded in 1968 in Troy, Ohio, and which by 1987 was doing over $300 million a year in revenue, those budgets simply drowned out the voices of the people telling you that you already had, in your kitchen and your garage, everything you needed. It is very hard to compete with a jingle. It is very hard to compete with a full-page ad in Better Homes and Gardens. It is very hard to compete with a smiling man on a lawn tractor in a commercial that airs during the Saturday morning cartoons your children are watching. And so, over about 25 years, the knowledge didn't die. It just got quieter than the noise around it. And a whole generation grew up assuming that lawn care was something you bought rather than something you knew. Let me give you one more specific example, because I promised you dates and quantities, and I want to keep that promise. In August of 1977, the town of Beatrice, Nebraska, experienced a drought so severe that the Municipal Water Authority banned all outdoor watering for 6 consecutive weeks. Every lawn in town turned brown. Every lawn except for a stretch of about 11 houses on North 6th Street, where an 82-year-old retired railroad conductor named Alvin Peterson had been quietly walking up and down the block for years, offering to spray his neighbors' yards with what he called his night mix. His night mix was ammonia, molasses, beer, dish soap, and a splash of what he called tooth wash, which was his word for mouthwash. He applied it at dusk, once every 3 weeks, from April through September. When the drought hit, his neighbors' lawns stayed green. The rest of the town went dormant. The Beatrice Daily Sun ran a small article about it on September 4th, 1977, on page 7, under the headline, "Old Timer's Recipe Beats the Heat." The article was 3 paragraphs long. It was never picked up by the wire services. Alvin Peterson died in 1981. His obituary did not mention the mix. His daughter, when interviewed by a local historian in 2004, said she had thrown away the notebook where he had written down the proportions because she didn't think anyone would want it. She was wrong. But she was wrong the way most of us have been wrong, because nobody told her the paper in her hands was worth more than the furniture in the house. This is why I asked you at the end of the last section to tell me in the comments what your grandfather or your grandmother did. Because right now, in this exact moment, there are hundreds of thousands of notebooks like Alvin Peterson sitting in kitchen drawers and shoe boxes and glove compartments across this country, and every one of them is one estate sale away from the landfill. What I'm doing on this channel, what I'm asking you to do with me, is to catch a few of them before they fall. Not all of them. We can't save all of them, but some. Enough to rebuild a working library of the things people used to know. Enough that when the next drought comes, or the next price spike, or the next $20 bag of blue pellets, you have an answer that doesn't require anyone's permission and doesn't require anyone's paycheck. I want to say one more thing about the mixture itself, because I know some of you are going to try this tomorrow morning, and I want you to succeed. The proportions I gave you: 1 gallon of ammonia, 1 can of flat beer, half a cup of molasses, 1 cup of dish soap, 1 cup of mouthwash. Those go into a 20-gallon hose end sprayer, and you set the dial for 2 tablespoons per gallon. You apply at dusk, not in the middle of the day, because the ammonia will volatilize in direct sunlight and you'll lose most of your nitrogen to the air before the roots ever see it. You apply once every 3 weeks during the growing season. You do not apply if rain is expected within 12 hours, because you'll wash the microbe food off the leaves before the soil can absorb it. You do not apply to a lawn that has been treated with synthetic fungicide in the past 30 days, because you'll be feeding a dead ecosystem and you won't see results for 2 months while the biology recovers. And you do not, this is important, you do not use ammonia that has been scented or sudsy, plain, clear, cheap ammonia from the bottom shelf of the hardware store, the kind with nothing on the label but the word ammonia and a warning triangle. That's it. If you get the proportions right and you apply at the right time and your soil hasn't been completely sterilized by 15 years of synthetic salt, you will see a color change in your lawn within 6 days. Not immediately, not overnight. This isn't a chemical burn of green. This is a slow, deep, root-fed color that comes up from underneath, the way a healthy tan comes up under skin rather than being painted onto it. Your neighbors will notice by week 2. By week 4, someone will ask you what you're doing, and you will have a choice to make, which is whether to tell them or whether to just smile and say you got lucky with the weather. I won't tell you which choice to make. That's your business. But I will tell you that every person who learned the mix from Alvin Peterson taught it to at least 2 other people before they died, and that's the only reason we have it now. There's a reason I keep coming back in these videos to the idea that knowledge has a shape and a weight and a lineage. It's because I think we've been trained over about 3 generations now to treat information as something disposable, something you Google once and forget, something you scroll past, something that lives on a server somewhere and can always be looked up later. But the knowledge I'm talking about tonight was never on a server. It lived in the hands and the mouths of specific people in specific places, and when those people died without passing it on, it went with them. There is no backup. There is no cloud. There is only the chain of one person telling another person at the right time, in the right words, so that the listener actually remembers. That's the whole system. That's the whole preservation strategy. And it has worked imperfectly for about 10,000 years. And it is failing now, in our lifetime, faster than at any point in recorded history, because the chain is being broken faster than it's being repaired. So when you sit down tonight or tomorrow and you write in the comments below what your grandmother did with the coffee grounds, or what your grandfather did with the fireplace ash, or what your great-aunt did with the water from the pickle jar, you are not just leaving a comment on a YouTube video. You are welding one link of the chain back together. You are handing something forward, and somewhere, 6 months from now or 6 years from now, somebody's going to read what you wrote, and they're going to try it, and it's going to work, and they're going to teach it to their kid. That's how this works. That's how it has always worked. And the people who buried this knowledge in the first place counted on you not doing it. They counted on you being too tired, too busy, too embarrassed, too convinced that your grandmother was just a sweet old woman who didn't really understand science. She understood more than they wanted you to know she understood, and the proof is in your yard if you let it be. I'll see you in the next one.